Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Alex, and with me today is Emma, our language expert.
Hi, everyone.
We are going to be talking about something that I think a lot of people listening can relate to, that feeling of being stuck when you're learning English. Like you're putting in the work, but not seeing the progress you want.
Yeah, you hit that plateau.
Yeah.
And it can be really discouraging. You have all that initial excitement when you start learning, and then you kind of hit this point where it feels like you're not moving forward anymore.
So we're going to talk all about why that happens and give you some strategies for getting unstuck and reigniting your progress.
Sounds great.
So first, I think one of the biggest things that trips people up is what I might call the consumption trap. And that is this idea that you can learn English by just passively consuming it, like watching movies, listening to music, things like that.
Right, and it makes sense. I mean, we're surrounded by so much English content these days, but it's like trying to learn to play the piano just by listening to piano concerts.
Yeah, you might enjoy the music, but you're not actually going to learn how to play that way.
Exactly. You have to actively engage with it to really learn.
So how do we do that? How do we break out of that passive consumption cycle?
So instead of just watching a movie, maybe try afterwards summarizing what happened in English. Or if you are listening to a song, try singing along and pay attention to the lyrics. Try to understand what they're saying.
So it's about turning that entertainment into a chance to practice.
Exactly.
Okay, so another big hurdle is the fear of making mistakes. So many English learners get stuck because they're so worried about sounding wrong or being judged.
It's totally natural to feel self-conscious when you're speaking a language that's not your native language.
Right, like you don't want to sound silly.
Yeah, but you have to remember that mistakes are an essential part of learning any language. Everybody makes mistakes, even native speakers.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If you were learning to play basketball, you wouldn't expect to make every shot perfectly right from the beginning.
Right. It's the same with language. It's a skill you have to practice, and you're going to make mistakes along the way. And actually, those mistakes are really valuable
How so?
because they help you learn and improve. They're like feedback. They tell you what you need to work on. So I think the most important thing is to just focus on communicating clearly, not on being perfect.
So it's more important to get your message across
Yeah.
than it is to have perfect pronunciation.
Right, because ultimately the goal of language is communication.
So it's kind of like dancing. You don't learn to dance by standing still. You have to move, and you might stumble a bit at first, but that's how you learn.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
So another obstacle that I think people run into is the habit of translating from their native language to English, word for word.
Yeah, I see that a lot.
And it makes sense because it's natural to want to rely on what you already know.
But it can really slow you down because you're not really thinking in English. You're thinking in your native language and then just kind of swapping out the words.
So it's like you're running a race,
Yeah.
but you're dragging a heavy weight behind you.
Right. And it prevents you from speaking fluently and expressing yourself naturally.
So what's the solution?
You need to start thinking in English.
But that sounds so hard.
It can be challenging at first, but it's definitely possible. And it's the key to becoming fluent.
Okay, so how do we start doing that? How do we break free from that translation trap?
Well, one way is to start learning phrases and sentences as chunks instead of individual words. So, for example, instead of learning the word good and the word morning, separately learn the phrase good morning as a unit.
That makes sense.
And the other piece is to really try to think directly in English, even for simple things.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you're hungry.
I am actually kind of hungry.
Perfect. So instead of thinking in your native language, I'm hungry, and then translating it, try to connect the feeling of being hungry directly to the English words, I'm hungry.
So I should be picturing myself feeling hungry and thinking I'm hungry.
Right. You're creating a direct link between the thought and the English expression.
Okay, I think I get it. So it's about rewiring your brain to think in English. Could we maybe try a little role play to see how that works in practice?
Sure. Let's say we're at a restaurant.
All right, I'm ready to order.
Okay, and I'm the waiter. Can I take your order?
I think I'll have the spaghetti carbonara.
Excellent choice. And for you, madam.
I'm in the mood for something lighter. I'll have the grilled salmon salad, please.
Wonderful. I'll put that order in for you.
Okay, so I was trying to think directly in English there.
Yeah, and you did great.
So it takes practice, but it does get easier over time.
Absolutely. The more you do it, the more natural it will become. So let's talk about speaking practice, like actually getting out there and speaking English.
Because that's really how you get fluent, right?
Absolutely. You can't just learn grammar and vocabulary. You have to actually use the language.
But what if you don't have anyone to talk to?
You can still practice speaking even if you don't have a speaking partner.
Really?
Yeah. One way is to just narrate your daily activities in English.
So, like I'm brushing my teeth or...
Exactly. Like I'm making breakfast or I'm walking the dog. It might feel a little silly at first, but it gets you thinking and speaking in English.
So you're getting used to forming the sounds and putting sentences together.
Right. And another thing you can do is timed think in English exercises.
What's that?
So you set a timer for like a minute or two and just force yourself to think only in English during that time. No translating.
Oh, wow. And what kinds of things should I be thinking about?
Anything really. Start with simple things like describing your surroundings. There's a lamp on the table or the sky is blue today. And then as you get more comfortable, you can challenge yourself with more complex topics like maybe what are my goals for this week or what am I grateful for today?
That's a cool idea. It's like a mental workout for your English.
Exactly.
And then I've also heard about this technique called shadowing. Have you ever tried that?
Oh yeah, shadowing is great.
What is it exactly?
So you basically pick a piece of English content, like a podcast, a video, or a TV show that you enjoy, and you listen to a short segment of it, and then try to repeat what you hear, mimicking the speaker's pronunciation and intonation as closely as possible.
So it's like you're stepping into their shoes and borrowing their voice.
Right. You're not just trying to understand the words, but also trying to copy the way they say them.
Oh, that's a great way to improve your pronunciation.
It really is. And it helps you internalize the natural flow and rhythm of English speech.
So we've talked about practicing on your own, but what about actually talking to other people?
Well, there are so many amazing online platforms and apps these days that can connect you with other English speakers from all over the world.
Like what?
Well, there's HelloTalk Tandem. Those are great for finding language partners.
And I've also heard of AI chatbots that you can talk to.
Oh, yeah, those are really helpful too. The technology has come a long way. You can actually have pretty natural conversations with some of these chatbots.
And it's a low-pressure way to practice.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about making mistakes in front of a real person.
So it's like having a practice partner available 24/7.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about speaking. Let's switch gears and talk about listening comprehension,
Sure.
because I think this is another area where people often hit a roadblock.
Yeah, definitely.
What are some of the challenges people face with listening?
Well, I think one common mistake is trying to understand every single word.
Yeah, it's like trying to drink from a fire hose. The words are coming at you too fast.
Well, exactly. And it can be really overwhelming. So instead of trying to catch every word, try to focus on the key words and the overall context.
So it's more about understanding the main idea than deciphering every little detail.
Right. And you can use your knowledge of the world and the situation to help you fill in the gaps.
Okay, so give me an example.
So let's say someone says, do you want to grab some pizza later? Even if you don't understand every word in that sentence, you can probably figure out from the words pizza and later that they're asking if you want to get pizza together at some point in the future.
Right, the context makes it clear. It's like solving a puzzle.
Yeah, exactly.
So what about subtitles? Are they helpful or are they a crutch?
I think they can be a helpful tool, but you need to use them strategically.
How so?
So if you're watching a video, for example, try using English subtitles instead of subtitles in your native language.
So you're seeing the words written out as you hear them.
Right. And that helps you connect the sound to the spelling.
It's like having a built-in dictionary.
Exactly. And then as you get more comfortable, you can challenge yourself to watch without subtitles. And that forces you to really rely on your listening skills.
Okay, so you're gradually weaning yourself off of them.
Right. And another technique that's really helpful is the listen, pause, repeat method.
Okay, I like the sound of that. What is it?
So you basically listen to a sentence or a phrase, pause the audio, and then try to repeat what you heard, mimicking the speaker's pronunciation and intonation.
It's like shadowing, but with shorter chunks.
Exactly. And it's a great way to practice both your listening and your speaking at the same time.
It's like a 2-for-1 deal.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to listen to fast, natural English.
Even if I don't understand everything.
Yeah. It might sound like gibberish at first, but your brain will gradually adapt. And the more you expose yourself to authentic English, the easier it will become to understand.
So it's like anything else. The more you practice, the better you get.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about different ways to practice speaking and listening, but I want to go back to this idea of thinking in English, because I know it can be a real sticking point for a lot of learners.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest challenges.
So we talked earlier about learning phrases instead of individual words.
Right. That's really important.
So instead of just learning the word happy, I would learn the phrase, I'm feeling happy today.
Exactly. You're learning the language in context.
And what about picture dictionaries?
Oh, those are great too,
Hmm.
especially for visual learners, because they allow you to associate the meaning directly with the image without having to go through translation.
It's like learning a language the way kids do.
Exactly.
Are there any fun exercises you can do to help you think in English?
One thing you can try is labeling everyday objects in your home with English sticky notes.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so like you could put a sticky note on your refrigerator that says refrigerator, or a sticky note on your lamp that says lamp. And it just kind of surrounds you with the language and helps you start thinking in English more naturally.
So your house becomes like a giant English vocabulary builder.
Exactly. And another fun exercise is something I call fast English thinking.
Fast English thinking.
Yeah, so you set a timer for like a minute or two, and you just try to describe everything around you in English as quickly as you can without pausing or translating.
Oh, that sounds challenging.
It is, but it's a great way to practice thinking on your feet.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different techniques and strategies, but I think the most important thing is to make English learning a part of your daily life.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be something that you enjoy.
Right, and there's so many ways to do that. Think about your hobbies and interests and see if you can find ways to incorporate English into them.
So if you love music, listen to English songs.
Yeah.
If you like to cook, find recipes in English.
Exactly. Make it fun and make it relevant to your life.
And what about other everyday things? Are there any other ways to kind of sneak English into my daily routine?
Well, one really simple thing is to change the language settings on your phone and social media accounts to English.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It's such an easy change to make, but
Yeah.
it makes a big difference because you're constantly being exposed to the language even when you're not actively studying.
It's like a mini immersion experience.
Right. And of course, watching movies and TV shows in English is another great way to learn while being entertained.
Yeah, I love doing that.
And if you can find a speaking partner to practice with regularly, that's really helpful too.
It's like having a workout buddy for language learning.
Exactly. You can keep each other motivated and accountable.
And what about online communities?
Oh, those are amazing. There are so many Facebook groups, Discord servers, Reddit communities where you can connect with other English learners from all over the world.
That's a great way to get support and make new friends.
Absolutely. So yeah, there are so many different ways to make English a part of your life, and the more you do it, the more natural it will become.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
I feel like I have a whole notebook full of new ideas to try.
I hope so.
So as we wrap up, is there anything you want to emphasize for our listeners who are maybe feeling stuck in their English learning journey?
I think the most important thing is to remember that progress isn't always linear.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, you're not always going to see consistent improvement every single day. There will be times when you feel like you're not making any progress at all, and that's totally normal.
So it's not like climbing a staircase where you're always moving upwards.
Right. It's more like hiking a trail. You know there are going to be ups and downs and twists and turns along the way.
But as long as you keep moving forward, you'll eventually reach your destination.
Exactly. And the key to keeping moving forward is to stay motivated and to find ways to enjoy the journey.
So don't get discouraged if you hit a plateau. Just keep practicing, keep learning, and keep having fun.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, there's a whole community of English learners out there who are going through the same thing.
Right. So connect with other learners, share your experiences, support each other.
That's great advice. I think it's so easy to feel isolated when you're learning a language, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Definitely not. There are so many resources available online and offline to connect with other learners.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've learned so much.
Me too.
I hope our listeners have as well.
I hope so too.
So any final words of wisdom for our English learning adventurers out there?
Just keep exploring, keep practicing, and keep believing in yourself. You can do it.
That's a great message to end on. Thanks so much for joining me today.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of our listeners out there, keep those English sparks flying.